Well, hey folks, we're out here doing a harvest of one of the hogs here on the ranch, and our customer Jessica and her father are out here, and her son are out here to help us with it. And one of the things that we're really pretty excited about is the fact that this animal never had to live with any of the stress of going to market and sitting in a trailer, all the processing stress that's brought on hogs. That we're trying to put this together in a way that is the most humane way we can possibly treat these animals. And look, we're trying to help people learn where their food comes from. And so this is going to be part of the process. We're not going to show the whole thing, but we will show pieces of it. I'm going to ask Ted a few questions about how he does this, and we'll go from there. All right. I'm here with Ted, and Ted's harvested a number of hogs and a number of animals. And
I'm Papi.
Yeah, I'm Papi. All right. And I'm just going to ask him a few of the basic questions on how to properly harvest a hog. And certainly this is a big one. It's 400 probably plus pounds. We're going to weigh it here in a minute. What are the steps in the process?
Yeah. Well, the exciting thing, as you said, Chuck, about doing a field harvest, which is out in the field as opposed to, in the pen or being trailered or whatever. This hog was basically lying down getting ready to go to sleep. So that's as relaxed as you can get. So the key thing when you're putting the hog to sleep, I use a 22 caliber hard-nosed bullet. So it's not a big bullet, but it's all about shot placement. So if you put that in the proper place, then it stuns the pig. So then you can come and cut the carotid and the jugular to make sure it bleeds out well, because you want to get as much blood out of the hog as you can.
Right.
So the shot placement is I draw basically a line between the two eyes and then about an inch above, and you want to go straight back toward the rear of the hog at this angle to hit the brain, which sits basically in between his ears and down under the thick part of the skull. And that stuns the hog. He'll go down, and then you get on him and go in front of the throat, in front of the neck, get a knife in, come up, and then I go back down to make sure I get both sides so the hog bleeds out really well. So now he's ready to hang, and we'll begin the next process. The next step is getting the hog hung, and you can do it by the feet, but generally I like to go in just like you would a deer or any other animal you're harvesting. You have the strong tendon that runs down the back of the knee, so you make a cut behind that, carefully not to sever the tendon, and then do the same on the other side.
So just like a deer.
Yep. And then we'll place a gambrel. And I have here a collapsible gambrel, which is nice, especially on smaller animals. On this one, he's a big boy, so it's not necessary. But the collapsible, you can do both sides.
Oh, I see.
And then put it together.
Interesting. Yeah, mine's just one size. So on a small animal, that would be a problem.
So then you can just put it together. So there we go.
So now we can hoist them up.
And I have a 600-pound scale here because it's nice to know, how much weight, how much live weight you're dealing with. So we'll put that on there, and then we'll hoist him up.
So here we're hoisting the hog up. We're going to get a weight and then start dressing it out.
Commercially, people like to have a skin a hog, and that's the way we do it when I was growing up as a kid. You got to have a big bath, a big hot bath to be able to get the hair to loosen. So then they scrape the hog and they skin the hog. Obviously, that's a little hard to do when you're doing it in the field, out in the woods. So my preference is to actually skin the hog. I found that we don't lose that much fat. We do lose the skin itself, but we don't really lose any fat. To me, it's just as efficient with the amount of meat that you're harvesting, and it's much easier to do, and you don't have the mess and trying to deal with water and boiling water. So we're going to skin it just like we would a deer or just like we would a wild hog.
Very good. Ted's got a little bit of an insider trick he's going to teach us.
Yeah, I learned this skinning a bear in Alaska with a guide, but I use a regular razor knife, a carpet knife it's called, and I get a hook blade that goes on it, which they sell at Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, which is what's called a shingle blade. So it has the hook on it like that.
Yep.
And the razor on there is really sharp, so that makes it really easy to go through the skin. So
Better than like a gut hook knife.
it is. It's much more efficient than a gut hook knife. And the other thing about this is because of the curvature, when you skin, you turn it towards you like this, and it doesn't cut into the meat. It literally just cuts under the skin.
Yeah, yeah.
So I found that to probably saved me 50% of the time skinning.
Very good.
So.
So Jessica, talk a little bit about how you ended up here buying this hog from us and driving 3 hours plus to Southwestern Virginia to pick up a hog that was raised here on the ranch.
So it's important to my family to have meat that has been raised well. And if we can be part of the process of harvesting, for me, that is pretty important. So I found you guys online and knew that you had raised your pigs well, and that's really important to me. So I contacted Chuck, and
The rest is history. Here you are. You know, I really wish my son could have been here for this. He worked so hard raising these hogs, and every morning before school, getting up, coming down and feeding them all through, you know, the dark mornings, coming out here, and rain or snow or shine, didn't matter. He had to come out here. And it was a good lesson for him to learn that, you know, again, your meat and your food doesn't just come from a grocery store.
No, it doesn't.
So I really appreciated that. But, you know, we appreciate the fact that you value those things that we think
Absolutely.
others value as well.
We're happy to be able to support a teenage boy that
Yeah.
had the insight to be able to do that. So
Yeah.
that was pretty inspiring for us.
My little entrepreneur, and unfortunately he had this little thing called school today, so you know, didn't want to let him out for that. But anyway, this is great, and thank you so much for you know, buying the hog from him. And
Thank you for selling it to us.
awesome.
There's some folks use what they call a strip method. It really works well on like smaller hogs, like American guinea hogs. You just go do strips with that carpet knife, because it'll just go right through it, and then you just pull the strips off.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's a little more harder to do, I think, on a bigger animal, and I don't know. I didn't find it saved me that much time, but that is a method.
Well, I think you're going to find this is a very fat hog.
Oh,
They had
yeah.
a lot of acorns. I saw the acorn crop just now, and it's pretty heavy this year,
Yeah.
and they are loving those acorns.
Well, I bet they are. Yeah, you can already tell he's got really good fat on him.
You're making some progress here. You're basically just working the skin off
Yep.
all the way around before you start taking the entrails out.
Yep. I like to get the hide down off. I actually skin the animal all the way and then take the entrails out. And that way it's much easier to keep it clean. You don't end up with it, you know, getting into the hair and then sticking, and it's just cleaner. A cleaner way of doing it. I do deer the same way. I skin them all the way out and then take the entrails out, and it's much cleaner and easier to do that. Much fat with this, you know, you do lose some. I'm old, so I'm not as efficient as I used to be, but you could also just lay this, you know, the hide out on a tailgate or something and take a fillet knife and peel any of the fat off that you wanted to keep if there was chunks that were a little bigger than you wanted to lose. Just go around. Once we've got, you know, his hind quarters skinned out, then you just basically go around and just keep working it down.
Pull the sock off.
It's a little bit different than a deer. You know, a 400-pound hog, you can't just grab a hide and jerk it off.
Doesn't work like that, huh?
No.
Okay, so most of the hide is off now.
Yep.
Getting down just the last little bit here. Got the fat. We've kind of slowly worked down the hide. And you're going to save, Jessica, you're going to save that fat and you're going to render it.
Yes, we're gonna make lard out of it.
Awesome.
Used for making bread and pies and all kinds of stuff. It's so good.
Very cool. That's going to be neat.
So this is all some great caul fat on the inside here. See how much fat's in this hog? That's the way you want your natural pastured or wood raised pork to look like. And I'm just cutting fat away so I can get in here to get to the anus, to be able to tie that off and to get the bladder tied off and everything, so I can get everything out.
So you don't taint the meat.
That's what I'm doing, yeah, trying. I mean, if you mess up, it's okay. It washes off, but you try not to do that.
Right.
There's those that have popped them open and those that will.
Speaking from experience, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have a little string, couple strings, one for the colon and one for the bladder.
Yeah, we gotta. And you can use a simple zip tie or string. Just get that as high up on the bladder as you can, and then cinch it up nice and tight as you can. So that seals the bladder off.
See, the bladder is right there to the left. Got it sealed off. Cool. So Jessica was talking about rendering the fat for lard, and I was just asking a few questions about that. So explain a little bit about your process. How does it work?
So we grind it up when we grind up the meat, because having it in small chunks is important, or small pieces is important. So you cook it down, you put it in a big pot, you cook it down. When you start to see clear on the bottom, wait till it's clear and not cloudy, because the cloudy means it's not ready yet. When you start to see clear on the bottom, you can strain all of the fat and keep the clear, dump all the fat back in, keep cooking it until you see clear again, strain it. It's a little bit of a process, but well worth it in the end.
And you were telling me that you use it, it makes a huge difference for bread and things like that, cooking with that versus
absolutely
regular cooking
it
oil.
tastes so much better, and the texture of the bread and stuff like that is a lot better.
Oh, that makes me hungry just thinking about it. So what kind of pan do you use to cook it in?
I have a cast iron pot that
It's
I
a pot?
use. I have a cast iron pot, and I have the skillets, but if you're gonna do like a big batch of it, then you would want to use a pot, because you can fill the whole pot up and then just strain the stuff out. But you could use a skillet too. Just cook it really low. That's the
Low temperature.
Yes, low and slow.
So you're basically just melting the fat.
Yes, you don't want to burn. You don't want to burn the pieces that are left in there. So if you have little pieces of meat and stuff left on the fat, it's not a huge deal. They'll stay and they won't come out with the clear. So you take all the liquid that comes off, and I've just poured into jars. Most of the time I just keep it in the fridge.
Awesome information. You know, once again, it's like learning new information about how to take advantage of all this awesome looking fat. I've been looking at this as we've been peeling it down. And do you will you take all of the stuff off the back and use that?
I'll use as much fat as we take off of it.
Okay.
We keep all of it.
Awesome.
We mix some of it in. If we're doing sausage, then we mix some of it back in with the meat. But then whatever we have left, I turn into lard.
Oh, wonderful. Good stuff. You never know.
It's like lace.
So what are we calling this?
Leaf lard.
Leaf lard, like LEAF lard?
Yes, I think so.
Interesting. And you say this is really useful and good
This is what they used to use for like pies, for sweet things.
For sweet things.
The taste of it isn't quite as savory as this fat up here.
Okay.
It just pulls right out.
And what is that? Where does that come from? What?
It surrounds the organs.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty neat. So there you're just taking that off with just a knife, cutting it off. Nothing else needed.
Cut it like you mean it. Now grab the knife by the handle like you're holding on to it for your life. Now, start right where the V is. See where the V up top, where the fat is? There. Cut straight down. There you go. All right, now open the cooler for me. Open the cooler.
There's your shoulder.
There's the shoulder.
Shoulder number 2.
Yep. Cooler.
can see the bacon.
I know, I was just thinking the same thing. Here comes the bacon.
This is your pork belly here. And this is split because the pork belly is split because I split it all the way down. But this is your pork belly.
Give me that.
Hey Dominic, I'm gonna need another cooler pretty soon. When you do back ribs, there's so you go in all the way like this. There's no ribs there.
Mm-hmm.
When you do your ribs, if you do the whole thing, you got a huge rack of ribs. What you do is you cut the front part off. That's your spare ribs, and then again is your back ribs.
That's your baby backs. They're
Yep.
closer to the vertebrae. That's
Correct.
just a little more meat on the back
It's
side of
meatier,
those.
less fat.
Okay.
Yep. Inside here is your tenderloin, and then your back loin, the big loin's on the back.
Mm-hmm.
So to do these, you basically make a cut up here, like so, and then just go along the spine. And then you just fillet that out.
Now, will you be able to pretty much peel that out like you do with a deer, or you can sort of just...
If it was colder, you could.
Okay.
It's a little warm,
I got you.
but yes. Ideally, what you want to do is dress this hog, get the entrails out. Ideally, let it hang. You don't have to age it like beef, but it's nice to let it hang for 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But you want it to be, 35, 40 degrees ideally. And that makes this whole job much easier.
Yeah, a little firmer. The meat and the fat is a little
Yeah,
firmer.
just like a deer.
Yep.
That's why I always preferred to bow hunt in November, as opposed to when bow season came in.
Yeah, it's too hot. Look at that. That's going to be a pretty piece of meat right there.
So that's actually inside tenderloin, which is the size of a tenderloin on most white-tailed deer.
Wow.
That's the size of the backstrap.
Exactly, the backstrap, yep.
Yep.
Well, we'll take you down. I'm going to get you a quart of that pork to go.
Oh.
Anyway.
So you're talking about living in a yurt for a year while you're building a house.
Man. How greasy that fat is compared to a whitetail.
Yeah.
It's very, you can just, the oil just oozes out of it almost.
It does.
It's amazing.
You can see, if you squeeze it, you can see the clear liquid.
You can.
Uh-huh.
Wow. That's why hogs were one of the favorite animals on a homestead, right? You had so many uses, the oil and for cooking and obviously the meat.
Pork loins as opposed to pork chops. And then save the bones. I smoke the bones, cut the spine, smoke the bones, and then we make stock and soup and stuff out of it.
Okay. Plus, it's a little easier probably from a processing standpoint.
is.
You don't have to have a meat saw. Look at that.
And there's a nice sized pork loin.
No kidding. Wow. So there's your spare ribs.
Yep.
Baby backs. Those will be good on a smoker.
Yep.
And now, Ted, what do you use that piece for?
That, I'll trim the meat off of there to grind it, but then what we do is cut it into, I'll probably cut that in half and smoke it, and then use it to make stock out of.
Okay.
Cook it and make
Yep.
soup out of it.
So now we're down to just the hams.
Now we're down to just the hams. these we're going to have to be a little more careful than normal because they weigh about 35 pounds apiece.
You want one of us to hold this one and one of us to hold this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because of the size of the hog, it's again thicker, heavier. So I used the meat saw. Make sure I get this thing cleaned out good.
Now, do you recommend getting a new blade each time? Is it dull quite a bit?
I usually can do about probably a half a dozen hogs with one blade.
Wow.
Yeah, because if you cut the fat away and then just do the bone, if you're trying to do a lot of the fat, then it's going to dull quicker.
Okay.
But you can get stainless blades for them as well, which are a little better. I didn't find them to be worth the money.
Not
so
worth
I
the
just
extra
use,
money?
Yeah, I just use extra blades.
Yeah. It looks like we about got her broken down.
Okay.
So last step will be to cut the...
No, I need to get a good grip.
Well, folks, we just wrapped up our first field harvest on Freedom Ranch Homestead, and I would say it was a success. We have a happy customer. Jessica was very happy with the animal, and I think we did our part, and certainly was a learning experience for me helping him and helping Ted. He's really, really knowledgeable about harvesting and especially field harvesting of hogs and other animals. So it was a great experience for me personally, but I think we have a happy customer as well, and that's always good. The thing that really kind of stood out to me as we went through the day was just kind of remembering again the number of amazing people that we've encountered in our own journey here on the ranch, building out our infrastructure and learning and meeting all these incredible people. And so met some new friends today, and I think we'll be seeing them again. I hope you guys learn a lot from this video, and let us know what kind of questions you have. This was, none of these processes are absolutely perfect, but this was, in my view, this field harvest is something that I'm definitely I feel confident now that we can do it as a family. And it was what I hoped for in terms of the humaneness of it. And as Ted described, the hog was about to go to sleep when we harvested it. And so, the level of stress that the animal did not have to go through, I think was something that, in the past I never really thought about a whole lot. But I can tell you, having been here and watched this and just see that for myself firsthand was really good. And again, I'm growing still at my ripe old age, but I'm growing and learning as well. And I just really hope you guys enjoy this video and learn from it. And, as a society, I really hope that people get to know their food better, where it comes from, how it's processed. I heard something today that was kind of interesting and eye-opening for me. I was listening to Joel Salatin talk about some of the commercial chicken processing, and that they dip it in 3 different types of chemicals before it goes to the market. And that would apply to organic chicken, to any kind of chicken that you buy in a commercial in a grocery store has to go through this process to meet the USDA inspection requirements, based on what Joel was saying on the video. So, it just kind of, again, thought about this and said, here we're doing this. These animals didn't have any antibiotics, no wormer. They had no medicine, and they lived in the woods and had an amazing chance. They got to eat acorns and grubs and whatever else they could scrounge up, roots and so on. What an awesome way as the food supply goes. If we're going to eat animals, and we are, then let's do as much as we can to try to harvest these animals as humanely, grow them as humanely and chemical-free as possible. I'm not against commercial farming. I realize that from an income perspective, most people can't afford the cost that goes into raising, these kind of animals. They're not efficient when it comes to cost. And we learned some hard lessons this year in terms of the market value and what people are willing to pay for hogs that cost a lot of money to raise. It was totally worth it for us. Oh, Waddles, here you are. Come here. You want to get in the movie? Waddles is going to be we're going to be having Waddles make some babies for us here one of these days. What do you think, Waddles? Huh? What do you think of that? Yeah? A little crazy? All right, I'll quit talking here. I'll move on. But anyway, so like I said, I'm not knocking the commercial food production system, primarily because I know that the world would not be fed without the amount of industrial agriculture that goes on. And having grown up on a farm and understand the process, all I'm saying is when you don't have to, then I think it's definitely an investment worth making in your own health. I think it's healthier, certainly a better option for those of you who can afford it. So anyway, not criticizing the commercial food supply, other than to say I wish the USDA would allow more home production of this kind of, and not make it so difficult to sell products to regular everyday consumers. But anyway, with that, I'm going to sign off, and I again hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Pickled corn. Corn and cantaloupe. Today's meal. Yum, yum.